Master of Social Work Year 2 is a whole different level. Like, year 1 was busy. It was, we had some things going on for sure. But year 2, it feels like they're training you to think like an actual clinician now, not later. So today, I'm going to show y'all my real workload, assignments, and how I'm staying on top of it without burning out. What's good, y'all? It's Jaimon. If you're new here, welcome back to Jaimon U, where we talk real life, grad school content, and becoming the best version of yourself. I'm in a Master of Social Work program at Aurora University. This is my year 2 course workload update, kind of just sharing what I'm doing in my classes. I am taking online classes that are asynchronous, so you can do them on your own time. Be able to talk about balancing the field internship in classes as well. The clinical writing that we're doing, it's a lot of it this semester, and I'm going to keep this real and practical. So let's get into it. What's different about year 2? Year 2 feels like less like do your homework and more like prove you can actually do the job. The assignments aren't just like opinion based anymore. You have to justify everything you say ethically, clinically, and with real sources. There are no sources this year with them discussions. The discussion post last year, I was able to do some, maybe not using a source and things like that, but you got to make sure that you're proving, where you getting all your information from, and just, it's not based on what you think you got to show some backing towards, what you're doing. So it's a lot more application, a lot of assessment tools that you're using to really just be able to hone in on your clinical thinking. Learning a lot about ethics and legal issues and things like that, which I think is really good to help prepare you, because, if you think about it, 2 years and then you're a therapist, it has to be this extensive. There's more papers and things like that, and there's a lot of quicker deadlines and stuff like that. So I actually have some of my grade calculators pulled up here, and things like that. I'm going to be going through some of the syllabuses, but I'm not going to share them because it's a teacher syllabus, so I don't feel right like just sharing their syllabus, but I will share my grades because, I don't mind sharing my grades and things like that. So let's get into it. So in my medical social work class that I'm taking right now, I have 2 major books that you have to buy for the course. A lot of these books you can find on Amazon. I found like a book for like $5 on Amazon. I got it right there. I'm not gonna go grab it, but I got it for like $5 on Amazon. I got another book for like $20. So some of the books you can find cheap. Some of the books you have to buy from the university bookstore. And actually, I kind of prefer buying from the university bookstore because you're able to access those books online, and I kind of read online now, doing the school work at home and stuff like that. So, but having a physical copy of a book isn't too bad either. And then it's kind of something just to build my library as I grow and things like that. So it's cool. We're reading the Handbook of Health Social Work and Mama Might Be Better Off Dead. Both great stories, but that's not what this video is about. So I want to just do a quick run through of the course and then the grading and things like that. We'll get to the next course. So a quick run through is it's more so about the history of healthcare and the social work's role in healthcare. As social work is a ever evolving field, it's sort of a newer field, and it's evolving. I remember when I was growing up, we didn't have a social worker in school. Now you got social workers everywhere. So just learning about the history, learning about the assessment intervention models, learning how to work with the diverse and vulnerable populations and different strategies to be able to work with these populations, which well informs my work working with Black and brown boys and men justice impacted in the Chicagoland, Lake County area. Also working on policy and funding and things like that, and then also focusing on those health disparities and the impact on society that we had because of those things. Now let's talk about grading, because this is where grad school gets real. The class is basically split into 4 big chunks. Each one is 25%. You have your weekly participation, which are your discussion posts. As you can see, we have these weekly. I did not respond to 2 peers, so I got docked for that. So I got 15 points for that weekly participation, which brought my grade down a little bit. I didn't even see that, but so yeah, my grade got brought down a little bit. So weekly participation is 25% of your grade, and so basically 1 discussion a week it looks like for this class. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, 1 discussion a week for this class. And you see I got docked for some points. Then we got the analysis paper. So we got a paper that we got to write for the class. Papers like 8 to 12 pages. Papers are not too bad. They are a little bit more writing, but it's not too bad, to be honest with you. So yes, we got a paper. We got the weekly discussions. Then we got the final exam, which is also 25%. And then we have the site visit and reflection. So those are kind of just bigger discussion posts. The site visit is you actually going to an actual site and being able to interview some of the clinicians, being able to interview maybe possibly some of the clients and things like that. So that is basically the breakdown for this class. And so as you can see, we have our weekly discussions. You see the final exam, paper, site visit, and it's pretty chill. You got some quizzes every week too. Not every week, but you got a good amount of quizzes. Probably there's 4 quizzes in there. You got a couple little assignments, like a learning exercise. So every other week you got another assignment too. So it seems like for this class it's kind of summing up to a round discussion and then an extra assignment or a quiz per week, and then you have a couple of the extra bigger like the paper and the exam, things like that. So what I found myself doing is really just being able to work through a lot of the discussions and things like that, and then just making sure that I set a lot of time down, a big chunk of time to work on some of the bigger papers. I would rather write a paper in one day, just because that's my workflow. It's really hard for me to work on a paper for an hour a day, so I'd rather sit and say I'm gonna spend this Sunday and I'm gonna finish this paper. So I just got to make sure that throughout the course of these 8 weeks that I set out 3 days to work on some of these bigger assignments and things like that, which might only end up being 2. I might be able to do the final exam and the site visit and this, but the site visit might be a little smaller. I'm just yapping at this point. But so basically, if you mess up with one major assignment in this class, it could tank your grade. That's why staying consistent is very important, because if I don't do the analysis paper and I don't got 100 in the class, then I possibly can fail. So, you just got to make sure you're on top of your stuff. The grading scale is at 2R. They just want to see the participation. Make sure that you, like I said, citing your sources and things like that. Something I didn't do. I got docked because I meant to get, or I was supposed to get docked. I should have replied to that. So basically the weekly reality in that is you're doing a lot of reading. So for this class, typically I like to read 3 days a week in the morning and then set out, some time to be able to knock assignments out and things like that. I'll just kind of talk about one of the bigger assignments. So one of the bigger assignments is a policy analysis paper for this class. It's 8 to 10 pages off of Mama Might Be Better Off Dead. And it's not a book report, but you're more so connecting a vulnerable population to the healthcare system, including using ethics, policy, and the role of a social worker. You're really diving in and sharing what you've learned from this book and what you could take from this book and what experiences can you share that you've learned, and things like that. So, also we the self-reflection paper, in that class, 2 to 4 pages, I already did it. Just basically personal experiences in a medical setting, kind of evaluating the equity of care and things like that. And, what could have improved in the situation, helping you reflect on your own experiences. How could this situation have improved, so you can take that real life experience and learn from it. I also have another class that is DSM-5 heavy, doing Simucase, doing mental health status exams and suicide risk assessments, and writing a full ethical mental health assessment paper. So let me tell you, this class has single-handedly already helped me in my day-by-day work. Just the suicide risk assessments that we've been able to use with the mock clients, the Simucase experiences that we've been able to use, I've been able to use in my real life sessions today. Like yesterday, I just had a session where, a client had self-harm towards himself or others. Not going to say what was in his mind, but just saying that, I had this situation where I had to conduct a risk assessment. I had to conduct a suicide assessment. I had to, get all of his team involved. I had to, and I was able to use the stuff that I learned in class to make sure I did the right proper steps in person. So, it's already a great class so far. That class is 2 discussion forums per week. The discussion forums are 300 plus words, and then you need 2 replies. So every discussion forum is about 3 discussions a week. So when I say I got about 3 discussions a week, you're writing about 9 discussions a week. So it's some work for sure. And then with the discussion post, you need to make sure that you have sources to inform what you're saying. There's 2 exams. We got a midterm and a final. I'm not too worried about exams. We had 2 Simucase assignments, which I knocked out. Those were like the 2nd and 3rd week. And if I look at his feedback, he gave me great feedback on both of them. He said, fantastic key takeaways from the assignment: being able to identify clients at risk and connect them with appropriate resources for help. But basically, he just kind of gave me some good, some really good feedback and things like that. I did well on both the Simucase assignments. I already knocked them out. And mind you, I'm in my second week, kind of like starting back, and I'm already kind of knocking out the third week and stuff like that. I'm working on these classes to get them done a little bit early, so to reduce burnout, but also to give myself a couple weeks before the next class to start, because man, this stuff get a little tiring sometimes. So yeah, doing pretty good in that class. And then also we have a week 7, I have a ethical mental health assessment paper, which is 10 to 12 pages. And that'll be pretty cool, just being able to assess what I've learned in the class. And I like the papers. They give me the opportunity to share what I learned in the class. And I like writing. Like, who gonna complain when it come to some writing? That creativity. So I ain't got no problem with it. And then we have a CSWE self-reflection assignment due on week 8 with that final exam. So, with this class, I'm be honest with you, I've been grinding through a lot of the discussions. I've been getting a lot of this stuff done. I just got to take my time on the papers and things like that. So that's the one thing that I don't rush through is the papers, just because the papers, I want to make sure that I'm including the information from the readings. And with the readings, I'm not going to end up reading a full book in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So I need the full 6-7 weeks to really get into the book, to really read the book, to really, to inform my essay and things like that. So that's the only reason why I kind of wait on those. But even my essays, I'll probably work on those around week 6, week 5, week 6. I really should start working on them sooner. Like, I could really start working on them now. It's just I kind of wait a little for those for the reading. Everything I kind of talked about, is, you can see it's all here. For both of these, everything, from all the assignments and stuff like that. So this is what your Master in Social Work second year is going to look like. It's not too extensive, but the work is work. You know what I'm saying? I ain't finna stunt to y'all or nothing like that. Now I want to get into some innovative ways to stay on top of your work, right? Now let's talk about what's actually keeping me afloat, because if you're in grad school, the usual use a planner advice or put it on a calendar is not enough. Syllabus mapping. The first thing I do is syllabus mapping. I take the whole syllabus and map every deadline into one master calendar, especially the big papers and exams. So I made sure I went through all that. I figured out, all right, when I want to do this assignment, when I want this assignment due, when I want this assignment due, when I'm going to start working on this. So I made sure that my calendar reflected when I wanted to work on these certain things. It had all my deadlines and due dates and everything. So create reminders 7 days before, 2 days before, and I do color-based calendars. So my school things is color under a different color and things like that. So basically just building it into your calendar. Also, I built a discussion post bank, right? Because grad school writing repeats. I keep a document with strong APA style sentence starters, ethical frameworks, and citation patterns, so I'm never starting from zero. Yes, I definitely keep all my discussions, because sometimes you just want to be able to make sure that you're doing the right thing. Like my headers, when I'm starting new assignments, I just go copy and paste one of my old APA headers and move it to a new doc. Like, a lot of these things just make it easier, a with common headings and things like that. DSM-5 citation format, and then, I always have peer reviewed sources ready to go, since I've got all these discussion posts just banked up. Now I got about 20-30 peer review sources ready to go for any class at any given time. So basically just building up a bank of your discussions. Let me get out this so I get it blurry. Next strategy is I don't take normal notes. I take clinical notes. Every reading I write, what's the concept, what's the ethical issue, what's the policy connection, what does this look like in real practice. I got a Google Doc with all my notes for my reading for every single class. Even if it's a different book, I'll kind of put my reading notes just together, just because I know those classes still relate. So I'll kind of just they'll be on the same doc, but it'll be like a book name, and then it'll be all my reading notes from whenever and things like that. So I just keep everything on one doc just to make everything kind of easier for myself. And my next strategy is my mindset, right? My mindset is protect points, not perfection. I never miss discussion posts or quizzes, because losing 20 points from a missed post hurts more than getting a B on a paper. So I would rather, get everything done, make sure I get everything done. I need better attention to detail to make sure I don't miss a discussion replay like I did last time. I need to step out this camera again. Next, I want to talk about energy-based scheduling. So I don't schedule by time, I schedule by energy, right? Like, I got to make sure that mornings is when I'm is my heavy reading. I like to read to get my mind awake in the morning. So mornings I'm doing the heavy reading. Right after I do the heavy reading is when I got the most focus. So that's when I want to work on assignments and things like that. I do discussion replies at night. That's just a cool balance for me, because if I know I got 6 discussion replies a week, I go do those Wednesday night, because everybody's discussion posts are due by Thursday. So if I figure everybody gonna have it in by Wednesday night, so I'll go do all my discussion replies on Wednesday night and be good for the week. And I don't do no heavy deep thinking after 8 p.m. at night. Like all that after 8 p.m. like that's for me. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I work a full-time job. My full-time job is kind of like from 12 to 8 ish. So after that, I'm just doing editing and things, things for me, because I can't do like real heavy schoolwork and write essays at night. It's just not my thing, not for me. I look clocked out when it comes later in the day. But before we leave out today, I want to have a real talk about burnout, right? I'm not going to lie. Like, this workload, it can be exhausting sometimes, because it's a helping profession. Like, we helping others. We, giving parts of us to people. It's not just homework. Like, it's an emotional toll that is taken on all of us. And, we're reading about trauma, healthcare failure, suicide risk, and then you go in the field to see real people living on it day by day, and it's not easy. We get a lot of emotional fatigue. Like, that's real. Compassion fatigue is real, and we need breaks that are intentional for sure, like just to get our minds off these things. Sleep matters more than we admit to. We got to make sure we get our sleep, and that's something I ain't been doing recently. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I be getting my 6 to 7 hours. I need my 8, but it's like, it's just what this is what I got to do right now. But it's something I got to work on too, for sure. So like I say, I really have to, because when I get my sleep, I just feel a whole lot better. If you're watching this and you're feeling behind, don't beat yourself up. Just adjust your system. That's what you need to do. You need to adjust that system of yours. Grad school isn't about being perfect. It's just about being consistent, showing up every day, trying to be the best version of yourself. Not being the best version, but trying to be the best version of yourself every day. If you're a master's social work student, comment what semester you're in, what class is stressing you out the most. And if you want, I can do a separate video on how I write discussion posts faster, how I outline 10-page papers, and how I study DSM-5 without getting overwhelmed. So make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Without further ado, we out. Jaimon, yo! Okay, so now that we're at the end of the video has this eye tracking tool that I've been using. So if my eyes been looking weird, like, it's some AI tracking tool. It's kind of cool though, because I don't naturally look at the camera, but it kind of helps me. So we're out for today. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.